A woman on her way to a meeting, a family enjoying a morning out, a seemingly normal morning with nothing normal about it. A man driven slowly to madness by changes he can neither see nor feel. It's a madness that can only exist in the Twilight Zone. Twilight Zone hasn't been invented yet? Not for another 3 years. Alright, this is old, new, and now playing. Hello and welcome to Old, New, and Now Playing, your time machine through the world of movies. I'm your host, Will Robinson Smith, and thank you for joining me today. Now, fans of Independence Day have been waiting for 20 years for a sequel to come out, and guys, the wait is almost over, so all this week we're going to be talking about sci-fi films, and before we whiz off into the world of the fantastical, let's keep things grounded with our first movie news segment, which of course is The Rundown.
Say it. Don't you say it.
You left.
Come on!
Seeing as it is Monday, we'll get things rolling with a look back at this weekend's box office. Coming in with a historic opening is the charming and funny Disney Pixar film Finding Dory with $136.2 million. The other big release of the weekend, Central Intelligence, comes in second place with $34.5 million. Dropping down to third place in its second week of release is the horror sequel The Conjuring 2 with $15.6 million. And rounding out the top 5 are Now You See Me 2 with $9.7 million and Warcraft with $6.5 million. For me, the biggest takeaway from this weekend is Finding Dory. The movie broke a few records, with it now being the biggest opening for an animated feature, a record previously held by Shrek the Third in 2007, according to The Hollywood Reporter. The other big bullet point from this weekend was Warcraft. The movie dropped off 73% from its opening last weekend, making it the third biggest fall from week 1 to week 2 for a movie that opened on more than 3,000 screens, and that's according to Box Office Mojo. The only two movies to do worse were the 2009 remake of Friday the 13th with an 80.4% drop-off, and 50 Shades of Grey with 73.9%. I really loved Finding Dory, and if you saw my last review, you know just how much I love this movie, and I'm really excited that it's doing well. I'm personally going to buy it on Blu-ray when it comes out, and I think you should definitely check it out if you haven't already seen the movie. Based on those numbers, you might have already. But as far as Warcraft is concerned, it's not a good movie to me. The ending kind of lost me, and so I'm not terribly surprised that it's dropping as much as it did from week 1 to week 2. Next, in a sad and shocking story, 27-year-old actor Anton Yelchin died early Sunday morning after his car rolled backwards down his driveway and pinned him against his brick mailbox pillar and security fence, according to the Los Angeles Police Department. Most people will recognize Yelchin from his role as Chekhov in the new Star Trek films, with the third set to hit theaters on July 22nd. In a Twitter post, J.J. Abrams, who directed the first 2 of this new series, said, "You were brilliant, you were kind, you were funny as hell, and supremely talented. And you weren't here nearly long enough. Missing you." The young actor had a busy career up till this point, with such critically acclaimed films like Alpha Dog and Green Room. We will get the opportunity to see and hear Yelchin a few more times, though. He plays the lead in the Netflix animated series Troll Hunters, which was made by DreamWorks and Guillermo del Toro and will debut in December, according to Variety. He had also wrapped filming a sci-fi drama called Rememory, playing opposite of Peter Dinklage. The movie revolves around a professor who mysteriously dies on the day before he was set to release a revolutionary invention. Unfortunately, I haven't seen many of Yelchin's films beyond what he's done in the Star Trek franchise, but based on what I've been reading about some of these works, I think I'll definitely take the time to check them out now. It seems like he had a really dynamic career, and, it's always sad to lose an artist at such a young age as he was, and, it seemed like he had a lot of potential and a lot of promise, and I think he's really going to be missed by this industry. And finally, Fans of the 2014 hit The Lego Movie will have to wait even longer. According to Deadline, the sequel, which was set to come out on May 18th, 2018, has been pushed back to February 8th, 2019. This is one of 4 films that Warner Bros. Has shuffled around recently. The disaster movie Geostorm, which is being directed by Dean Delvin, the producer of Independence Day and the 1998 Godzilla, is being pushed back from January of 2017 to October of that year. Taking its spot will be the Ben Affleck-directed Live by Night, which Deadline describes as a period crime film Affleck wrote and stars in, alongside Chris Messina, Zoe Saldana, Sienna Miller, and Brendan Gleeson. The Ed Helms Owen Wilson comedy Bastards is also getting knocked back from its November release of this year to January of next year. I'm kinda bummed about the Lego Movie news. I was really looking forward to a sequel to the 2014 movie, and now we have to wait 5 years for its sequel to come out. I think that's a bit long to wait, and you lose on some of the momentum that you had in 2014. I guess the only silver lining is that we are going to get a Lego Batman movie in between those two, so that's something, I guess. I mean, I am looking forward to that movie, so we'll see how it turns out. And guys, now that you're all caught up on the news, let's head into our main segment, your feature presentation. Invasion of the Body Snatchers is a 1956 sci-fi thriller that takes place in the fictional town of Santa Mira, California. The story is about Dr. Miles Bennell, who comes home from a business trip to find that some of his patients are claiming that their relatives and friends are imposters. Bennell, played by Don Siegel, dismisses the notions after seeing the supposed doppelgangers for himself. But when a colleague suggests that these ideas are coming from some kind of contagious mass hysteria, the doc starts to get a bit suspicious. He investigates with his love interest, Becky Driscoll, played by Dana Winter. He soon realizes that they could be in over their heads when they discover that strange pods around town are creating people. About 20 or so minutes into this movie, it started to feel like an extended episode of The Twilight Zone, which for me is not a bad thing. They're both very similar in style, and there's actually a good reason for that. The movie came out near the beginning of when television really began to dominate. Many studios, like Allied Artists, who distributed the film, started to drop many of their lower budget B movies in favor of making fewer, but higher budget films. However, in the post-World War II era, sci-fi films were starting to gain more prominence, and lower-budget films like Invasion of the Body Snatchers were able to still get made. Another way they were able to cut down on the budget was with a shorter shooting schedule. The bulk of this movie was shot in just 23 days. Also, just the concept of this movie allowed it to have a modest budget. There are no expensive aliens or extravagant sets. All of the horror and suspense comes from what we don't see, and that paranoia drives the main characters. The movie is based on The Body Snatchers. It was a serial that appeared in Collier's magazine in 1954 before becoming a novel the next year. Originally, the movie was supposed to have the same title, but it was changed to Invasion of the Body Snatchers to avoid confusing it with the 1945 RKO film, The Body Snatcher. Considering when the film was made, there have been a lot of conclusions as to what the overall metaphor of the film was, whether it was talking about McCarthyism or political conformity, and certainly those opinions were very strong around the time the film came out. But if you ask those involved with making the film, they say that those conclusions are a little bit off. In his autobiography, studio head Walter Mirisch wrote, "People began to read meanings into pictures that were never intended. The Invasion of the Body Snatchers is an excellent example of that. I remember reading a magazine article arguing the picture was intended as an allegory about the communist infiltration of America. From personal knowledge, neither Walter Wagner nor Don Siegel, who directed it, nor Dan Mainwaring, who wrote the script, nor the original author Jack Finney, nor myself saw it as anything other than a thriller. Pure and simple. Looking at this movie today as nothing more than just a movie, I thought it was a bit dated because of the 50s references, but I thought it holds up nicely because it has a really strong story and strong acting. I thought that McCarthy and Winter had good chemistry on screen, and that, overall, McCarthy added some nice life to the film among the intendedly stiff pod people. Also, the movie uses shadows and camera angles well to heighten the suspense. And while the music was good, it felt a bit too on the nose on more than one occasion. It felt like it was telling me how I should feel in a given scene, instead of just trusting that the story will get me there. Overall, I thought this was a solid sci-fi movie. It's not too long, but it gave me enough time to enjoy the world it was creating before the climax started to occur. I give the movie a 7.5 out of 10. The story is great and still holds up today, but it had some unnecessarily corny moments, and one kind of big continuity flaw at the end which left me scratching my head. You'll see what I mean. And if you love this movie, you can check out the remakes that were done in 1978, 1999, or 2007. So those are my thoughts on Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but I want to hear what you have to say about this movie, and what are some of your favorite B-movies? I know there are plenty to pick from. Leave your thoughts in the comments section below. One other interesting thing I found while researching this movie was that the opening and closing of the film weren't originally planned. They were scenes added by the studio and shot after principal photography had wrapped. I wonder what the film would have felt like without them. That will do it for today's episode of Old, New, and Now Playing. Remember, if you ever have a movie-related question you want to have featured on the show, whether it be about the movie I'm reviewing that day, or movie news, or just a general movie question, you can always tweet at me. My handle is @W_RobinsonSmith. Just use the hashtag PopTweets so I know it's a question you want to have featured on this show. Or you can always send me an email at oldnewnowplaying@gmail.com and just put PopTweets question in the subject line. And guys, Independence Day Resurgence again is coming out this Friday, so on Wednesday, we're talking about the 1996 original film. I haven't seen it, I'm excited to dive into it, and I hope you guys will join me on Wednesday so we can talk all about that goodness. I'll see you then.